Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk, KGVO. Well, it's a radon kind of day here at Missoula Real Estate Today. Sure nice to have Sean back. Sean Murphy with Murphy Radon. Welcome back to Missoula Real Estate Today, Sean.
Thanks for having me, Denny.
Yes, sir. It's been quite a while, so we might as well refresh. What inspired you to be a radon specialist back when?
Ever since I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to do it. No, I'm just kidding.
He dreamed.
Yeah, it was my dream growing up. No, my wife and I, on our first date, I told her I was a contractor and I did just about everything and was looking to do just one thing. It'd be a lot more efficient because as far as building things, I'm pretty good, but I wasn't great at the whole business aspect of, having my equipment organized for 50 different trades. So she said that this town she was in the real estate business to some degree at that point, and in property management. She said it was hard to find a radon mitigator at the time.
Wow.
There was a few, but they're busy. There was only two.
Yeah.
So I think it was since I knew we would have been married after our first date, I took it very seriously. Probably within a week, I was registered for the certification program.
Man, so you kind of found an untapped resource at the time.
That's, yeah.
That's strange. That's really cool.
Literally stumbled into it.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And my knowledge of other things comes in handy when I'm reverse engineering through a house, trying to, knowing how things are built and where I can go and where I can't.
Exactly. If you go to your website, you'll see a van with your logo and the number 186 above your name, Murphy Radon, and the 222 below the name. What is that about?
That logo was created on the fly because I actually 100% copied the font and style of Santa Cruz Skateboards logo. And I'm not in a competing market, and I didn't have an attorney, but I talked to some friends that were attorneys, and they said, you're fine. Well, Santa Cruz Skateboards didn't see it that way, and they were very aggressive. Oh. And instead of standing my ground over a logo on one van, I decided I gave him a call and said, hey, let's be clear. I did 100% copy you. I'm not trying to say it's different in any way, but if you have a problem with it, I didn't mean any disrespect. So can I have more than 48 hours to fix my van, please? So they gave me a month, and I had to come up with a new logo, and that's the periodic table. It's the atomic number and atomic weight as the backdrop. And around the edges is, so basically we took a radon atom and then put the symbol over it and then put my name over that and kind of came up with a combination there.
What was it about that? Why did you like that logo so much that you decided to knock it off and hopefully not get caught?
Well, once upon a time, I'm from Santa Cruz. I grew up there as a kid. Yeah. So now it actually worked out better for me because I don't think anyone could read the font of Santa Cruz logo. And so ever since I changed the logo, I actually get calls from my van. I never once got one prior to changing the logo. So it didn't even make it 6 months, the original logo. But now I actually get calls. People can read it clearly.
Sure.
And know what's going on.
All right. So that worked out actually for the better.
It did.
Sean Murphy Radon, our guest this week on Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk KGVO, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Radon 101 there, Sean. What is it? How does it find its way into homes and businesses?
Well, it's a radioactive gas that comes from the soil. It causes lung cancer. It's odorless, tasteless. It's non-chemically reactive. It's an inert gas, but it lets off low levels of radiation. And if one of those molecules goes through radioactive decay while it's in your lung, it's electrostatically charged, so it clings to dust. You breathe dust in, and if it goes through its radioactive decay in your lungs, then rays of radiation can hit the nucleus of a lung cell and then trigger the growth of cancer.
How much fluctuation is there with radon? If you detect it in one area, I think I kind of have an understanding of this. If you detect it in one area and measure it, will that measurement stay constant, or is it ever changing?
Well, it does fluctuate greatly. It's the best way to describe it is most structures are typically the air pressure is negative in relationship to the atmosphere around it. So you're constantly it's going toward that negative space. It has a place to go. So anything that changes the air pressure inside of a structure will change the levels of radon. So it's definitely it's hard to describe it when you can't see it,
Right.
smell it, taste it, but I can get rid of it, trust me.
Yeah.
Wink. Like it's sometimes the explanation sounds kind of silly, but there's so many variables to bring it in. It's probably, I don't know how many there are. There's probably thousands of variables that bring it in, whether people have their windows closed, whether they like them open,
Yeah.
whether they leave the bathroom fans running all day with the light on and forget about it, things like that. So just because your neighbor has it, depending on how the house was built, depending, it's geological though. So it's in the soil everywhere in this area. It's just, that's typically the difference. It's all, I could set two radon testing machines 6 inches apart and they're not going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
So there are small variations. You'd expect them to be very close, but they more than likely would not be identical.
Well, and erratic in its existing areas too, right? I mean, you can possibly detect radon in a location, but not far from that. Say maybe just the house next door. Absolutely nothing.
Yes. I do, however, become a little suspicious. Theoretically, I could raise the radon level in a house. So when someone calls me and says, hey, I had a high number, but I don't think it's right, more than likely errors are going to be on the low side. It's easier to accidentally leave a window open than it is to mechanically try and elevate the radon level. So and when it's in 90-something% of houses, when it comes back at very, very low on an initial test, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't babysit the house the whole time I'm there.
Yeah.
And you can't, whether it was intentional or whether it's kind of hard to level those accusations because someone's kid could have accidentally left the window open. You don't know.
Yeah, there's one example. Are there other things that people might unknowingly be doing around their homes that could be adding to a potential problem?
Absolutely. Back to the whole bathroom fans, stove vents, if they leave them on too long, things like that will actively depressurize the house. And it'll make more of a negative air pressure for radon to come in at a quicker rate. That could have a factor in it. Heat actually in the wintertime is called stack effect. So as the heat rises, it creates a slight draw upwards, like a siphon almost. It creates a slight tug upwards as it rises. It can draw radon in. It's probably not a coincidence that anytime I mitigate a house and it still wasn't successful, which is it's rare, but it's not a coincidence. It's always between December and February. All of them are between December and February, for maybe a rare exception that I can't think of off the top of my head, but they're always in the wintertime. There's always snow on the ground when I struggle getting one below the mark.
Yeah, sure. Really, that makes sense. Where does Western Montana rank in terms of low, normal, high radon levels, and whatever the answer is, can you pinpoint any particular reasons why?
Yes, I can tell you exactly why. So the EPA has a map, a radon zoning map, zoned 1 through 3, 3 being the lowest, and it's color coded, and it's just this big blur of a whole grid of. Some of them are more complicated than others. Some of them are broken down by county across the whole entire state, so it's really a lot of lines. But zone 1 is a high zone, and that's what Montana is, and it's geological. It's in the soil. It starts off from the radioactive decay of uranium, which then I can't remember all the progression here, but it breaks down through thorium 234, protactinium 234, thorium 230, and then radium 226, and then radon 222. So as it decays over time, then you get the radon gas that comes up.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. My guest is Sean Murphy, owner of Murphy Radon here in Missoula. Radon Reduction Systems is the service you provide. What makes that an effective product?
Well, it's been developed over the last, I want to say 40 some odd years. And it's a constantly active system that is constantly depressurizing, whether it's underneath the slab of a basement, whether it's under the vapor barrier of a crawl space. you're creating a negative air. You're actively creating a negative air pressure that's a constant. So it makes your house positive in relationship to where the radon's coming from. The same thing, it would work to. I did in Hamilton. There's a archives room, and it's also a Cold War bomb shelter.
Wow.
And
where's that at?
I can't remember which building. It's one of the county buildings or such. And a few of the other mitigators just didn't want to mess with it. And it's as far as radon exposure, it's called. I haven't had to make the calculation in a while, so I don't remember the exact formula. But it's called your working level. So, for instance, if the radon level is 1,000, which would be very extreme. I've never seen 1,000 personally, but you're in it for 5 minutes a month. It's a sliding scale. It's really not that bad if you're barely in there. The problem with your house is you sleep there, you live there. It's kind of a statistical anomaly, but more people die from lower exposures than high exposures because there's not a ton of people that are uranium miners. I haven't met one, so it is weird that there's a higher number of deaths from long-term low exposure than there is high exposure, but it's all the same. It's not good. But if it's a very high level, but you're in it a very small amount of time. So I did try and explain to them it didn't have to be done. They were insistent on doing it. Yeah. And on that particular one, I couldn't. How am I going to get through 8-foot thick concrete walls? It's going to be pretty tough. Yeah. So I called my guru, who probably invented half the stuff I use. I've never met him personally, but he's on the East Coast, and he told me just put a fan in the doorway blowing into the room because it's, probably 50,000 square foot building, and it's a little teeny room. So I pressurized the room. So as long as whether you're raising the water low in the bridge, whether I'm sucking from under the slab of concrete or whether I'm pressurizing the room actively, as long as it's a positive pressure in relationship to where the radon's coming from, it went to almost nothing. Took it to almost from very high up, I think it was like 70 or 80, and took it to almost nothing. You close the door almost all the way and you let go and it would click on its own. It would shut. Okay. Radon's gone. Wow. You can't do that in houses because you're pumping wintertime air into the house. It wouldn't be efficient. It would probably be a disaster on many levels. Yeah. So you can't really do that. That was a rare circumstance to do that, but I ended up getting a new tool for my bag of tricks. Those are the fun ones. The weird ones is where you actually learn the most, not the routine layups.
I guess when I looked at that, I didn't do much homework on it because I knew you were going to come here and do my homework for me. But I was thinking it was some sort of a, I don't know, like a metered device or something that you could leave or a customer could purchase. Or maybe it's a product at the store. I don't know.
They do make continuous radon monitors. I don't recommend them for people that are a little bit neurotic that will sit there and just stare at it the rest of their life and call you every 20 minutes with an update. Well, but
those people might be uranium miners. You don't know.
Yeah, I deal with all kinds, and I understand. I mean, once people have Googled up a panic attack, there's some stuff online where I read, I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder. Most people either completely panicked or freaked out, or they're upset because they think it's not real. Yep. So very rarely is someone just even-keeled rational about it. Yeah. More often than not, I'm trying to, someone will say, well, I'm not staying in that house for one day. I'll stay in a hotel. I'm like, well, did you test the hotel? I'm just saying. Yeah. So I just try and assure people that there's no evidence to suggest that you're going to die from staying in a house because I can't get to it for a week. Yeah.
You don't need to worry about that. That's what the media, that's what we do. We tell people long enough that they're sick, they'll be sick. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's our job here.
Oh yeah, no, it's so sometimes I just say, I want to know what they've been reading and where they get all this stuff. Yeah. I'm not staying there for one day. So I've never read anything that says it'll kill you in a day. Oh man. That wasn't, unless something's new. I didn't read the newsletter from yesterday. So unless some new information's out that haven't been versed on in the last 48 hours, then I don't know. But there's active monitors. They typically, they're usually step in step with my more expensive equipment. They just, mine's constantly recalibrated. So I would just tell the general public, if you get one of those, $200 ones, you might want to just renew it every year if you're that concerned, because it's a very sensitive piece of equipment. Okay. So if it's out of calibration, then new ones out of the box are typically step in step with my machine.
Yeah.
People, homeowners want to run it next to it to see how accurate it is, and they're usually within a couple small percentage points of being the same. So I go off those. But or if a customer wants to go off theirs, then they'll just not have me run a test. It happens from time to time where someone says, "Oh, I trust my monitor. You don't have to set your own. I'll let you know when it's down." Say, okay.
Yeah. But one of your concerns you just pointed out is the long-term reliability of a product.
Yeah, I ask him if it's brand new, and if they, "Oh no, I got it 5 years ago," I said, "Okay, it might be fine, but you might want to.
Yeah.
If it comes out different than mine, we might want to get a new one because you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So a $5,000 machine versus a $200 machine, I would hope is different. I would hope.
Is it something can it be recalibrated? I mean, even
I believe you can send it by the time you do all that.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, it's not something you can do at home.
Yeah, I don't think you can recalibrate them yourself.
Yeah. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Sean Murphy, owner of Murphy Radon here in Missoula. Man, I've been taking about half the show asking about testing stuff, Sean. What is an actual mitigation involve? What is a typical remediation job like?
Well, typically it's, first of all, I got to determine when the customer calls me if they have a basement or a crawl space or a slab on grade home. And from there, if it's a crawl space, it's got to be lined, and you seal the liner, and you have your perforated pipe under the liner, which passes through and goes up to the outside of the structure of the attic where your fan is. And it just basically you have a fan that a radon system is basically a shop vac with your hand over the hose. Okay. That's basically the idea on how it works. So you want to create a vacuum. So whether it's under the slab, you drill through the slab, watch out for water lines, things like that. Make sure that you know where the in-floor radiant heat is. Got to have that located. If once in a while that gets miscommunicated. I'm about 10 for 10 hitting it. When people say, "Don't worry, I know where it is," I say, "Are you sure?" And because I'll hit it, I'll find it, and they say, "Oh no, I know where it is," and I hit it every time. So, but it's not on me. They say go. I say okay. I voice my concerns, and then I go. Or just I have to reschedule, and a plumber has to come professionally locate where it's at.
Gotcha. What does prompt customers to call you? I imagine there's a lot of different answers to that question, but are there any indicators they might suspect, or like we talked about, they hear other people talking about it, and then they just decide they've got to say, what is it that suggests that they could use a radon inspection? What is not a typical, but what are some of your customer calls like that you guys hook up?
When I first started this, it was not, I don't even know if it's standard procedure yet, but it's very common now that a home inspector during a real estate transaction, it's part of their inspection. It wasn't a given when I first started this 7 years ago. It wasn't. So I'd say, 90% of my business is from the real estate market. Mm-hmm. I do deal with people having allergens and things like that. During conversations, I'll say, a customer will say to me, "Oh, I can't wait till you're done. My wife will finally be able to breathe well." And I'll be like, "Well, what do you mean?" "Oh, because she has allergies. And this isn't an allergen. I don't want you to feel ripped off when I leave here and she still can't breathe." Because unless something very new came out, it's typically you have lung cancer. That's about it. So it's not an allergen. It's not going to irritate anything. You're not going to know anything about it until it's too late. That's about it. So that's typically someone has either they're investigating health problems would be another, the remainder.
Yeah. Great example.
The remainder 10%, so they've asked their doctor, and doctors have said things, and I'm not at all qualified to question what a doctor says, but it goes against anything I'd ever read. So I just go with it, because I used to be a paramedic, and I know what I know and I know what I don't, and I am not a doctor, and I'm not even a paramedic anymore. That's a perishable skill as well. So I'm probably about 2% of a paramedic. Yeah. But it's definitely definitely the real estate market's what drives most people call me, hey, we're selling our house. It came back this way. Or they're selling their house. A common question I get is, when I bought my house 10 years ago, it was 0 and now it's 30. What happened to my house? And I say, okay, well, you either had a major geological shift under your house, which I don't think so, or, and once again, I walk a fine line because I don't want to point fingers because I don't know. Yeah, I really, really try hard not to level accusations against anybody, but more than likely, intentional, unintentional, they can determine that on their own. There was an error in the test.
Yeah.
And the reason I say you can't level accusations is because, hey, someone's kid accidentally left the window open and they didn't know. Or someone didn't get the memo. This job entails you're drop smack down the middle of people moving in, moving out. It's a little bit, everyone you talk to is stressed out on other levels and they might not have remembered what you told them.
Yeah.
So that's another one is I get a lot of questions on what the heck happened to my house? And it's like, yeah, more than likely what happened to your test in reality, because it's a lot easier to leave a window open on accident than to have a geological shift under your house and not know about it.
Right. What is one or more of the more stressful calls you've made? Have there been instances of Murphy Radon got here just in time?
Not health wise, but I do take a lot of pride in being the guy that has the answer. I do. So when an agent, my right hand man Josh, who he's irreplaceable. He helps keep my business alive. He asked me one time, he was laughing, he said, what's an emergency radon job? I was like, what is that? And I said, that means that the agent or somebody miscommunicated and everyone thought it was taken care of and it wasn't, and it needs to be done like now. So it's Sunday at 6:00 and we're going to go knock it out because someone's trying to give me money and I'll gladly take the job. Mm-hmm. And, that's how you create a good rapport with the agents.
For sure.
Someone calls you and you hear the desperation in their voice. If it's at all possible, I'll be the guy to help them. Yeah. I mean, if I'm out of state or something, which is very rare, then I don't know what I could do for you. But I can't think of a time where someone's had their back against the wall and I had to just say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I try not to do that. I just start working with it. Is the house vacant? Oh, it's vacant. Okay, then we got this. I'll just piggyback. We'll do more than one job a day, but you got to make sure the second one is vacant.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they take 2 hours, sometimes they take 10 hours. And as soon as you get 20 days in a row of 2-hour jobs, hey, why are we just doing one? You book 2 and the universe knows, and you'll get 2 10-hour ones right back to back.
Your reputation precedes you when you do that.
Yeah, so then you're like, okay, well, in case of that happening, you should, I'm okay to do a second one and go even after the sun goes down, but it's got to be a vacant house.
Right.
You don't want to run jackhammers at 10 o'clock at night when someone's trying to sleep.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. My guest is Sean Murphy, owner of Murphy Radon here in Missoula. Also, I want to say thank you to some of Diane's marketing partners that bring you the show every weekend here on KGVO. Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage. I think Rob's on the calendar. He'll be in the next week or two here. Miles Link at Opportunity Bank of Montana. Carol Blodgett with MakeItMissoula.com. Back to Sean Murphy with Murphy Radon. In most industries, and I'm sure yours is like this, ever-changing technology. Any newer gadgets you've acquired that have made your services be even more efficient or interesting or fun?
Well, anytime I get a new tool, it's fun. Those are my
Right.
toys. I work so much that don't really have a whole lot of time for anything else, and I like what I do, so I don't really consider it that hard of work. But I haven't gotten anything lately. There's constantly new gadgets and gizmos. They try and repackage a lot of things that are from other industries and sell them as special radon things, and they're not.
Yeah.
But I mean, this isn't a high tech one, but the staples for landscape fabric or special radon fabric staples. They're like, that's a landscape staple. It's a stupid. They'll do stuff like that, or a special auger to help clear the holes out for your drill, and that's a paint mixer. Like, what are we what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So I haven't. There is some new things that are happening with grab samples and 1-hour tests and things like that, and I've tried to tell a few of the inspectors that that's a very small sample, 1 hour, especially with something. And even if it's accurate, it's going to leave you. You're just going to end up on the phone a lot explaining yourself, and maybe steer away from it. But it's very convenient from their end to just let a grab sample test run while they're doing the rest of their inspection. They don't have to go back. They don't have to. It's just they're done with their inspection. Now they have their radon. So I fully get why they would do it. And I'm not questioning the accuracy for that hour. But in my opinion, especially in Montana, where there's from hour to hour, there's big weather fluctuations. And weather fluctuations can definitely increase. So if it's noon on a July day and it's sunny, and I just don't know if all the protocols are properly followed. Having the house closed up prior to the test. So I think it leaves a lot of room to get picked apart. But that's the testing process in general, because you can't. It's not a very controlled experiment. You can't sit there and make sure the house is all closed up. At some point, you're taking someone's word for everything.
Yeah. You brought up home inspection services a little while ago, and we've had home inspectors on this program.
Yeah.
And one of them, I think it might have been Craig Hartsey with Apex. I'm not 100% sure on that, but one of the things Craig pointed out is a few years ago, the state of Montana kind of tightened up the certification requirements. There was a time there it sounded to me like I could hold up this little cardboard sign saying Denny Home Inspector, and that was good enough. They tightened that up and required a lot more.
Sure.
How about your business in terms of certification? What is required to help assure customers you're legit?
Montana still does not require you to operate with certification. It does cause problems when it puts me in a weird spot. Once again, talking about walking a fine line. I don't want to badmouth anybody. I don't want to. So I'm sitting here looking at, I already have a pre-existing, my builder put it in. And I'm looking at something that just wasn't done right at all. Or they have a pipe running through the structure of their house from the crawl space. It penetrates the roof. It's stuck in the ground. You have a piece of pipe, which I can piggyback off of, and it is useful. It'll help the aesthetics of your house. I don't know if I would call it a system. It's a piece of pipe, which is great to run up through the structure if you're going to have to. You would be blown away. I think the cat's out of the bag. Radon's here, and I have to knock holes in brand new houses no one's lived in all the time.
Yeah,
because no one did anything. Or if they did, I can't guarantee my work the same. It usually does work if I'm determined to tap onto it, but I just can't guarantee it because I don't know what they did under the concrete. Yeah. I don't know I don't know if they did it right. So it's kind of like, hey, here we go. So, but I never charge for an extra trip if it doesn't pass, and the total wouldn't exceed what a fair price would be to begin with.
Right.
If I have to end up coming back and running more tests and doing this, I just call it a wash.
You got some good business models over there, man. I like it. Our guest this week has been Sean Murphy, owner of Murphy Radon here in Missoula. And Sean, really appreciate you coming back on the show. If anybody would like to find out more about Murphy Radon, contact info, website, all of that stuff.
Yeah, they could always give me a call at 406-531-3860. I personally prefer that.
Okay.
My website's mtradon.com. And my email, which is another probably the best way to actually get a response if I'm under a house. My wife runs that department, so I've sent 3 emails my whole life. That's not my thing. I mean, my phone, my touchscreen doesn't even work well in my hand, and I'll hand it to someone else, and they'll be able to do it. So I'm cursed.
I can kind of relate to all this.
I'm cursed in that manner, but murphyradon at gmail is the best way for especially agents to get something going, because most of the time we do bids without even having to go out. We just get you a bid right away. Unless it's, built in 1890 or something, I should probably take a look.
Sean Murphy with Murphy Radon. Great having you back. Good seeing you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Denny.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. For a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit movetomissoula.com. That's move, 2, Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.